Good evening and welcome to our webinar, Battling Small Business Burnout and Building Resilience. This webinar is being brought to you by the Buffalo Niagara chapter of SCORE and by our presenter, Lindsay Amico. I'm SCORE Workshops Coordinator Ted Galantowicz and am pleased to serve as your host. Assisting me tonight, we have chapter workshops co-coordinator, Nancy Sheehan. To begin, I need to let you know that all attendee microphones will be muted during the presentation. The webinar is being recorded and the link to the recorded session will be made available to all registrants within 24 hours. Also, our presenter will make a PDF copy of the slides from this evening's webinar available to all registrants, and that will be sent to you within 24 hours. Our speaker has requested that if you have a question or a comment during the presentation, that you record your question in the chat box. She will address questions at the end of the presentation. There's a chat symbol at the bottom of your Zoom screen, which will open the chat box for you to use for your questions and comments. The presenter, Nancy Sheehan, and I will be monitoring the chat during the presentation. Since I've brought your attention to the chat box, I'm going to now request that all attendees click on the chat box and enter your full name. And if you are in business, the business name and the type of business. Go ahead and do that now. Access the chat box and full name if you're currently in business and the type of business you're in. Within the next 48 hours, via email, all attendees will be receiving an evaluation form regarding this evening's presentation. Please complete the form and return it via email. Before handing over the microphone to our presenter, I'd like to let you know that this webinar is part of SCORE's commitment to promote the success of small business. We do it through local and nationally available training events, one-on-one mentoring, and by providing numerous online informational resources. SCORE is the volunteer arm of the Small Business Administration, and it has hundreds of chapters and thousands of volunteers in the United States. Our Buffalo chapter has about 60 members. Our mentoring is free and confidential, and most of our educational events are free also. Contact us at buffaloniagara.score.org and via our national website, score.org. Please note that our Buffalo Niagara chapter has scheduled the following webinar workshops through the end of August. We've got a webinar on Tuesday, August 24th, Business Model Canvas, a one-page plan for your business. That's a morning program on Tuesday, August 24th. On Tuesday, August 31st, we are presenting resources for small businesses, where to look. That's a 10 a.m. start time for that program. We're also in the process of posting notices for 3 workshops in September. September the 2nd, there'll be a morning workshop on the art of selling. On September 14th, our Microsoft partners will present a workshop on intermediate level Excel. And on Monday, September 20th, we'll offer an evening session on understanding limited liability. You can register for all of our instructional workshops at buffaloniagara.score.org. All right, well, let's get to our presenter. Lindsay Amico is a certified mindset coach and motivational speaker in Buffalo, New York. Her business, Picture Perfect Mind, LLC, focuses specifically on helping people to feel better on a day-to-day basis with mindfulness, thought management, and energy healing tools. With an approach that goes beyond stress reduction, Lindsay provides professionals with the power to release limiting benefits and to connect to their true purpose. Looking forward to your presentation, Lindsay. Thanks for being with us and thanks for doing this. The microphone and the controls are yours. Go for it.
Hello,
Can't
everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction, and I'm so happy to be here, of course, throughout the presentation. If you can't hear me, anything like that, feel free to interrupt. And of course, I know that Ted has already said this, but not only questions, but provide feedback and comments along the way. So if I'm talking about stress and how it affects every one of us differently, and I ask, how does it affect you? Feel free to share. Of course, feel free to not share along the way, always respecting you and what feels good to you. I love that when we can participate. I think it all is so much more enjoyable, and I actually get to connect with you. And of course, take what serves you and leave the rest behind. So I'm assuming if you're here, you have either experienced burnout, you're going through it now, or you're at that level of stress where it might be leading up to burnout and you want to prevent it. So I don't want to overwhelm you in this presentation. Take what connects with you and bring it into your life, right? If something is speaking to you, bring it in. And if something feels like, I'm not really sure about that, then don't worry about it. That I will not be offended whatsoever. So today we are talking about burnout, we're talking about stress reduction, and first and foremost, we're going to talk about awareness and where are we now? I think many of us know when we disconnect from our mind, we disconnect from our body, things tend to happen almost without us knowing about it. They build up and then we look around and we're like, this is happening now, and now I have to deal with it. So how can we build resilience? Where can we create that shift once we become aware of what's happening? How can we prevent burnout? And then also a self-care action plan for ourselves. And keep in mind that once you have these tools in your tool belt, you can help everyone around you. You can begin to notice if you have coworkers or if you have people on your team in your business and they're not acting like themselves, you can actually show up and support them and let them know that they're not a robot. Let them know that productivity is not their worth that day. Let them know that there's resources for them so they can come back fully as themselves. So what do? I help folks to feel better so they can show up as the fullest version of themselves. So we bring awareness in, we release our frantic and anxious energy through thought management, through mindfulness, through energy healing, all that good stuff, of course, through motivation. And then we navigate our inner critic and connect to our true intuition and power. So that is why I am here. So taking a quick breath. How do you feel now? And how do you want to feel leaving the presentation? So if you feel overwhelmed, maybe you want to leave feeling peaceful. If you feel anxious, maybe you just want to leave feeling like you have a plan. If you feel kind of unmotivated, do you want to feel excited leaving? So set that intention for yourself right now. Pop it into the chat if you feel like sharing. Set the intention so that even though we only have about 60-ish minutes for this presentation, that intention can carry on with you into your day-to-day life. Excited, yay! Stephanie, sending you excitement. And feel free to type as I'm continuing on. So please share if it comes to you, great. Current overwhelmed, would like to feel excited. Nice. And just to let you guys know, I'll say a lot of things throughout this presentation, but it's not an overnight thing. So just like our businesses are not an overnight thing, they're a living organism, there's something we have to tend to. If we have been thinking a certain way for a long time, if we have equated working hard with success, if we have equated putting more and more effort into something as success for a long time, that doesn't mean it's incorrect. It just means that you might be pushing yourself so much. Those neural pathways have been built. So it takes a little bit of time to rewire. That's all I want to say. Motivated, wanting to feel empowered. Yes. Anxious and want to be calm. Perfect. Stressed by not realizing all the steps required to start a business. Who can relate, guys? Okay, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about this today, because I truly can relate. And I feel like I go through many of these things on a daily basis. And it's because I'm not a robot. And while I'm a mindset coach and I have learned these things and implemented them in my life, and I need to walk the walk so I can talk about it to people, that doesn't mean that I don't go through it, but it's that muscle that we have to build. Right? You have to work on the muscle of what thoughts you want to think, because those thoughts create your reality. So stress means something different to every single one of us. Someone could get headaches. Of course, we could get insomnia. We could have physical effects. We can have mental effects, where we all pretty much know, right? Stress affects everyone differently. So we've always had it. And so basically our body perceives the stress, prepares to fight or flight, and then those hormones are released into our bloodstream: cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. So that is how our body is intended to respond. So I want you to think of stress as a mismatch between the demands we're experiencing and the resources we have to deal with those demands. And I believe that as entrepreneurs, we ourselves are often the ones that are putting a lot of stress onto ourselves, because we're saying, I'm not far enough along, I don't know enough. You're learning all of these new skills. You're doing something that maybe no one else in your family has done before, or if they have, you're putting that pressure on yourself, which is normal. Once again, I'm sure every single one of us in this webinar have experienced that. So the demands are different for everyone. It's internal, it's external, it's hassles, life-changing events, but we all only have time, energy, finances, patience, problem-solving ability, and physical, emotional, and mental health. So I can't really necessarily give you more time. I can help you with perspective shifts so that you can add to your health in different ways. We live in a fast-paced society, right? So in our culture, we turn on the television, there's an opinion, whether you're watching the news, whether you're watching sports or a reality TV show or anywhere in between, we all have opinions and judgments. And in the professional realm or in the small business realm, having that strong sense of judgment and opinion is linked to intelligence and capability, which means judgment really is wired into our brains, which is so fascinating because then it also comes back onto ourselves. So how often did you find yourself connecting to opinions, judgments, or I should in general in your day-to-day? Does anyone relate to this? And it's okay if you don't really have the sense of awareness at the moment. And if you do not, kudos to you. That is truly incredible that you are not connecting to comparison regularly. Michael says, I want to feel productive again, definitely in burnout phase from business and family things. Absolutely. And I feel that because so many of us equate productivity to our worth, and it also feels really good to be productive. I think every single one of us agrees with that. It just feels good. So feel free to share. Do you feel like you're in the judgment mode? And I'm going to just go into this while you're thinking on that. Should do is an everyday occurrence. One of my things I say to myself is remove the shoulds. Like anytime should comes up, it's just not true. It's just that there's a value that we're looking to meet, right? So maybe the value is I start work at 8 a.m. and we're just not meeting that. So the brain is saying I should. It's really interesting. And so judgment is very addictive, especially when it becomes a coping strategy. So it helps us to feel like we're belonging. At the core, biologically, we want to belong to tribes. The need to belong is so deeply rooted in our psyche that the fear of rejection conjures reactions to that of physical pain. So it's like, if I'm not successful or if I don't do the right thing, I'm going to fail. Therefore, I'm not going to be accepted. Therefore, I'm going to be in judgment, so on and so forth. So just once again, bringing awareness to our mind is amplifying things to that level of something really bad is going to happen. All of this is rooted in our evolution. Awareness. Which then makes us feel like this, a slight inconvenience happens and our whole world is going to shut down. We have this stress response curve and the peak performance is right here. So I want to point out that burnout and stress are not just associated with bad things. It's also when we have a ton of business coming in, or we're trying to figure out something with the pandemic, we're trying to pivot, or we get a new client, that's a demand that our body has to respond to. Fatigue, exhaustion, ill health effects, and burnout. So because we live in a society that's go, 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 rush, 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 do more, we fall into the burnout phase pretty easily when we're not bringing awareness in. I wanted to bring some myths versus facts in about burnout. So I think there's a lot of beliefs in our society we don't always bring awareness and attention to. Burnout only happens to weak or vulnerable people. This could be something that we don't even think about. It's just an automatic belief system that we've taken on. And the truth is, burnout can happen to anyone, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. If I'm not motivated, that means I don't have the right mindset. That's not true. It's not all about mindset. Mindset is an integral component, which is why I'm a mindset coach, right? But there's so many different factors that go into this. It's our physical body, energetic, emotional, spiritual, and mental. It is not just mindset. So if you're being hard on yourself for not having the right mindset, I'm here to tell you it's not just that. Burnout happens when people or their business is failing. Once again, not true. Like I said, it happens with all the good stuff too. If you have kiddos at home or a personal thing, or once again, the pandemic, I know has sent all of us into this new phase of figuring things out. You can face burnout in a lot of different ways. And burnout only happens when you don't enjoy what you're doing. I think all of us, many of us at least, I don't know all of you, but I think many of us do what we do because we're passionate about it and because we want it to succeed and we have a deeper why. So clearly burnout is not just associated with hating your job. So what the heck is it then? If I'm talking about stress, burnout is a reaction to prolonged or chronic job stress. Now, to me, it doesn't just have to be about job stress. This is just this definition. Burnout can happen in all areas of life. 3 main dimensions: exhaustion, cynicism, and feelings of reduced professional ability. But once again, replace that with, let's say you have an ailing parent, and so burnout can totally affect your life in that situation. It's just you don't feel like you can show up as well. You feel like you have nothing left to give. Maybe you're having really poor health issues. Here's some of the examples. So take a look at these and bring in the awareness without the judgment. It's okay if you're going through something like this, just bring in awareness. Okay, I have less productivity. I'm lacking that creativity. My inner critic is really heightened. Maybe I'm having problems sleeping. Maybe I'm having comparison. Maybe I'm getting mad at the people around me. And if any of us have coworkers or have had coworkers, we know this is a thing, right? This is true. So taking a look at this, knowing that anything you're experiencing has nothing to do with you. It's just about what phase of life you're going through right now. So some questions. Are you cynical or critical? Do you drag yourself to work? Are you irritable or impatient? Do you lack energy? Do you find it hard to concentrate? Are you in that procrastination mode where your mind is trying to protect you from something, right? We're avoiding what we need to do. Lacking satisfaction, feeling disillusioned, using things to buffer the pain, or have your sleep habits changed. Whatever is present is okay. And have you heard any of these statements from yourself or others? I just haven't been feeling like myself lately. I need to get through this busy season and then it'll calm down. I'm just tired. I'm sure a vacation will take care of it. I have pandemic fatigue, or I am overwhelmed. I know I'm burning out when I make mistakes that I ordinarily would not make, because it's that pressure to go, go, go. And many of us have not established boundaries and we feel like we can just take it all on. Because we just want to show up as the best version of ourselves. But showing up as the best version of ourselves also means having boundaries in place. And then this is just a bunch of statistics and text here, guys, but I want you to know that we had stress and burnout prior to the pandemic, and we will continue to have it. So burnout rates were at 42% with this specific poll pre-pandemic, and now they're at 72%. So there has been so many ways to pivot during this. I could probably have a whole presentation on pivoting during the pandemic and utilizing creativity and finding different ways to be successful, because that is very accurate. However, there's also been a lot to go through, and it is very valid if your business has struggled, if you have struggled. That is not you. That is what we are going through. And you get to the point, I just don't care. Yeah, you just don't have the means to put on the facade, right? And then that hurts other people around you. So this is an example that I use all the time. It's like we wake up in the morning and think about it like you have a jar of marbles that you have access to every day. Maybe you didn't sleep well the night before, so you have less resources. The marbles in this example are resources. So you have less resources to give. Maybe someone in your household needs something. Then you have the dialogue that you have every morning of, I can't do this. What am I going to do? I'm not productive. I'm not successful. I don't want to get my work done, etc. Right? So throughout the day, we're decreasing our resources. So how can we find ways to provide you more resources on a regular basis? Most people I've met already know what they need to do, and most don't want to change. And the reason that we don't want to change is we have belief systems that we firmly believe in, and it is very scary to try to change them, even if those belief systems are not generating positive emotional states. So the thing that we have to remember here is we only have control over ourselves. We don't have control over anyone else in our lives. The only thing we have control over is, I have a belief system in place. Is the belief serving me? And knowing that confirmation bias is a real thing, so the mind will find more evidence for our belief, which we'll get into further on. I'm going to talk about that. So that is also fascinating to say, I have the belief that I have to work 12-hour days to be successful. And maybe because you saw someone else doing that, or wherever you took that on, but are the 12-hour days leading you to success, or is it leading you to burn out? And could you benefit from changing that belief? Some deeper questions here. Once again, you don't have to think about everything at once. You can always go back and watch this webinar, but it's really interesting to start asking some of these questions. So now that we understand the problem more, where can we create a shift for ourselves? So I'm going to talk about mindfulness for professionals. I'm just going to give you a few tools. I'm going to talk about thought management and a few ways to shift our perspective with this. And I'm going to talk about self-care and what that means. That doesn't just mean bubble baths or massages or, things that we typically refer to in that. It's self-care to take care of ourselves so we can show up. So another thing I want to mention, I think I said it earlier, but it's not just mental here. We have different energy bodies. So it's physical, emotional, mental, energetic, and spiritual. Everything meshes together. And this is really about connecting to what do we need? What does our intuition say? Because what works for me right now is most likely not what you need in this moment. It's about getting to know ourselves. So physical could be water, could be sleep, could be food. It could be any of the above. Maybe you know that you're not hitting any of your physical needs right now. Mental could be talking to a coach, talking to a therapist, making a list, getting it out with a coworker, venting, prioritizing. How do we connect to the mental body? Energetic and emotional, going for a walk, laughing, crying, watching a funny movie, just connecting to our emotional state instead of continuing to push it down because we say we shouldn't have emotions. And then spiritual doesn't have to mean a higher power. It could mean connecting to intuition. It could mean going out and taking a hike in nature. It could be swimming in your pool, if you have a pool. It's connecting back to yourself. So getting to know this is really interesting. Maybe you've gotten to know this before and you've forgotten because you've gotten so busy and bogged down with so many things. So how can mindfulness help us with this? I think we've all heard of the term mindfulness. Oops, sorry, that was a loud car. But mindfulness is an amazing way to drop back into the present moment because our brain is always projecting into the future or into the past. That's how our brain operates to protect us. So mindfulness is getting so much traction lately and there's so much buzz around it, but it's because it truly helps our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So between stimulus and response, there's a space, and that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Viktor Frankl, Auschwitz survivor. So it creates a space for you so you don't have to feel like I'm going to react instantly. It creates the space for you to just simply be. Paying attention on purpose with moment to moment, non-judgmental awareness. So it actually is not stress reduction, but it leads to stress reduction. So here's some practices for busy professionals and entrepreneurs. I actually have a 21-day stress reduction series. So if you're interested in that, let me know. It's pre-recorded videos. So that's great. But these are just very simple shifts that you can do in 5 minutes or less. So you're going to have that dialogue that says, is mindfulness really important? Do I really need to be doing this? Is it going to help me? Or I don't have the time to do this, and you really do. It's 5 minutes or less, but it's just that you need to choose something that feels good. So mindful walking, even if that means you're not going outside, walking to get a glass of water, noticing your feet on the floor, drinking the entire glass of water and really appreciating that, noticing how cool the temperature is, noticing what is in your environment around you, the decor, noticing the color of your walls. If you can get outside, it's even better because there's more to experience: the plants, the air, the energy, the houses. Even if you did this for 5 minutes in the morning, walk around the block, 5 minutes in the afternoon, it's a great way to reset. Setting a timer for a mindful moment. So this is just sitting in your chair. Maybe in the afternoon, you get really stressed out at a certain point, taking a break, breathing, taking a sip of water, coming back to the present moment and recognizing that your mind is definitely not in the present moment right now. Bringing it into an activity. So this is beneficial for the people that do not want to stop and do not feel like they can stop and are constantly in fight or flight. You can bring mindfulness into answering emails, feeling your fingertips on your keyboard, focusing completely on the task at hand. You can set a timer for 15 minutes and answer emails and not focus on anything else. That is mindfulness. Doing the dishes and not looking at your phone. That is mindfulness. So finding more ways to appreciate the present moment. Mindful eating, it doesn't have to be the whole meal. It could be noticing one bite of food. How does it taste? Where did this food come from? Is it healthy for me? And it's not about judgment. It's about noticing what is. Deep breathing, we all breathe. So anyone that says, I don't have time for mindfulness, once again, it's not true because we're all constantly breathing, and deep breathing can be used even when we are doing work. So coming back to the breath, it can even be a reminder on your phone. Maybe it's hourly. If that stresses you out, you don't have to do that, and just noticing, where is my breath right now? And a great way to do this is placing one hand on your abdomen. You can do it right now. One hand on your chest. Breathing in through your nose, breathing into your abdomen, holding that breath, and breathing out. And what typically happens is we breathe shallowly when we are stressed. Let's see. I created a corporate burnout is not possible freebie. Yes, love it. And Stephanie, if you're asking if the recording will be available, it will be. We will definitely ask about that, yeah. But you'll definitely have access to it. So another great technique is a counted breathing method. So let's say your alarm just went off. You put your hand on your abdomen, you put your hand here, you take some breaths, and you can do a 4 count. So breathe in for 4, hold for 4, release for 4, and just keep doing that. You can do it along to a song, but that's actually the box breathing technique is a technique utilized by Marines to enhance focus. So it doesn't always have to be about, oh, I'm going to take a nap right now. Sometimes we need a nap. Sometimes we need to go to bed at 6 p.m., right? But if we integrate more deep breath work and we tune into how we're actually feeling while we're doing work, we don't have to get to that point. So those are some techniques. Just type it in the chat if you have a question about any of those. And also feel free to share if you have done any of those or if you integrate them on a regular basis, because I, especially since the pandemic, have become an avid bird watcher and an avid walker, and it has been amazing. I have incorporated deep breathing, yoga. I'm more aware of what I eat. I'm more aware of my sleep. But that takes time, and it really comes to a point where you just have to make a decision for yourself that you are worth it. But that doesn't mean everything changes overnight. That just means, you know what, I think I'm going to start taking a 5-minute walk every day and see where that leads me. Or my body's really telling me I need some more water, so I'm going to get one of those bottles and I'm going to drink it throughout the day. Or you know what, I think I'm going to change my belief on this because it's making me feel really stressed out and it's not serving me. So it's just one shift. It doesn't mean an overhaul of your whole life. And if you want to do that, that's great. But I definitely recommend working with a coach or someone that can lead you along the way. You do deep breathing through a mask all the time. Link to recording? Yes, perfect. Okay. So every day brings a choice to practice stress or to practice peace. So those are some of our mindfulness techniques. I'm going to check my time here. Okay, perfect. So let's get a little more into thoughts and perspective shifts, because our mind is amazing. And I also want to bring attention to there's only so much that we're conscious of, which is incredible. So If you're feeling like affirmations aren't really working for you, definitely feel free to reach out to me. That's why I also work with energy healing, because there's more beyond the mind that we can really see. But here's what we can see, and this is very powerful. So every minute, our body's reacting to the thoughts we have. And we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. About 90% of them are repetitive. And so that means, oh, I have to get up now. Okay, I have to get up now. What do I have to do for work today? It's the things we think about every day. And there's also evidence that about 80% of them are negative, which is wild. If you do something often enough, you create a neural pathway, and that neural pathway becomes much easier to travel and stronger. So if there's this, it's just so powerful. If there's a particular belief that you have right now that you wish you didn't have, if you choose something else and practice that for about 60 days, very consciously, that can create a new neural pathway. Yes, I implemented most of these things over last month. Severe case of anxiety. Yes, continue on the path. And so many of us, I have a new statistic, actually, I have it right here. 4 out of 10 US adults who experienced anxiety or depressive disorder specifically during the pandemic. 4 out of 10 US adults, which means there's about 15 folks on this presentation. Granted, the data is skewed because you came to this presentation for this topic, but I would think the majority of us have gone through this, and it is very debilitating, which is why I think it's really important to do this work for ourselves, and also to not be afraid to ask for support when you need it, because I think you can have such a strong mindset and be a very strong individual and still go through these things. It has nothing to do with strength. So remember, we're never out of our own minds. We can never get out of our own minds. And if we perceive something, we are on some level creating it. So we see the world through our own filing cabinet, through our own filters. So how I see something is not how you're going to see something, and that's okay. It's about our surroundings, our values, our current emotional state, our memories, our 5 senses, and our belief systems. And this is really important as a leader as well, to remember that you're coming from your own space and your team is not always going to be there with you. And to have that self-awareness, very empowering. So here's what I was saying before, is the thought serving me? So if I'm feeling anxious or stressed or overwhelmed, that means I just have to backtrack for a second and say, what thought is creating that emotional state? And if it's not serving you, you can choose again. So if you're feeling lack mentality, this is one of the things that so many of us go through. We can envision what we would like to have. So, how do I want to say this? If you're having lack mentality, an amazing thing to do is to connect to gratitude instead of like, oh, when this happens, then I'm going to be happy. Instead of looking to the external, how can we create a shift internally? I have food in my fridge. I have water that's coming out of the sink. I have a family or a friend group that's very supportive. I have a cat who's amazing, or a dog that's amazing. What is in your life, and how can you create good emotions around that and make that more a stronger neural pathway? I'm going to go into this a little deeper in the thought management model. So the circumstance is neutral here. We have a thought that creates a feeling and an action and a result. So just in this model, the circumstance is neutral. So that can even mean my business did X amount of dollars last year. That statement is a fact. It's just that we have a thought that forms a feeling, an action, and a result around it. So this was just a slide that I have around, I put post-pandemic, but obviously we're still in it. when the world was becoming busier, how do I manage all of these expectations? I don't want to transition back to the office. I'm overwhelmed. Is it weird that I don't know how to be social anymore? What's going to happen in the fall? And I'm going to take today for what it is and take things one step at a time, putting my mental health first. So the mind is going to be wired to have a lot of worries, especially if we've been anxious or if we've been this way for much of our life. It's just about bringing the awareness in, choosing something that feels better. That's the first step. I also want to point out, my thought doesn't need to make you feel better. You get to choose your own thought, and no one else can ever tell you what to think. So this is all up to you. How do I manage all of these expectations in a busier world? That can invoke anger, frustration, depression, overwhelm, comparison. Maybe we struggle to become motivated, and then we continue to feel defeated and stuck. Busier world is going to stay the same, but we just change our opinion about it. I get to decide on the things that I commit to. Can I start today with the most important thing? What is one thing today that can shift everything? Empowered, focused, set on a goal, productive. And once again, that's just if that thought serve you. Pick the most important task and go from there, feeling in control of your own life. This is the practice that we get to choose. What do I choose to think today? What do I choose to believe today? Am I letting my mind lead the way, or am I starting to pay attention to what's coming up? This is where I like to talk about the inner critic. So I always like to say that inner critic, it can be the voice of one of your parents or both of your parents. It's a voice that seeks to protect us, that wants us to do better. It wants us to get more money. It wants us to be a more effective business owner. It wants us to be more successful, whatever that definition is that day. Negative self-talk. It seeks to keep us safe. Story or belief system based in fear. Igniting lower level emotions. I just have to move my chat for a moment. Blame, guilt, shame. You're not good enough. If I had a nickel for every time that neural pathway was gone through in my brain. Judgment and comparison. Productivity is our worth, and actually we are inherently worthy. And lack mentality. So this is kind of an all-encompassing, of course there's other examples, but it's that negative internal dialogue that does not make you feel good, but is trying to motivate you. So here's some examples of some of the things that we might be thinking about. If I can't get all of this done, the business will go under. So just asking yourself, is that true? Is that productive for me today? And if not, is there something else that I can think or believe today? If I don't do well enough, I'll be judged by others. Judgment is a natural human instinct, and I deeply accept myself despite what others think. If I don't work 12-hour days, you can even say 10-hour days, 8-hour days, whatever your mind is saying, something bad will happen. What if I miss something? And remember, 12-hour days do not equate to success. What if for 4 of those hours you're stressed and you're running around and you're not really utilizing your work in the most efficient way? We all have busier seasons, but that's not how your world has to be. Why is that other person successful and I'm not? And it might just be that they look successful. I am so successful, and here are the reasons why. Finding evidence for your success, and it doesn't need to equate to money if that's not what you feel successful about right now. I'm throwing a lot at you guys, I feel like, so Please let me know how this is hitting. I'm not in front of you seeing your faces, so let me know if you have questions, thoughts, you're connecting with something. And of course, we're going to have Q&A as well. So, but let me know how that feels. Good stuff. Good. How do we navigate the inner critic? Relatable, resonate. Okay, good, guys. And it's because I'm going through it too. So that's why I can speak to it. So awareness, here's your step. If you're going through the inner critic stuff, how do I feel right now? What thought is impacting my emotional state? Compassion. How can I find some compassion here? So I'm not coming in again as the ego to say, come on, we got to fix this. We're finding compassion and love for ourselves. And I know that can sound kind of strange to people, but this is your own journey, but truly giving that what you need to yourself so you don't have that inner critic continuing to come back up. Can I choose again? And is there another way I can see this situation? So the belief is I have to work 12-hour days and I can't do it because I'm burned out, which means I'm weak and I'm not doing well enough. And why haven't I figured this out yet? And it's been 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, and I'm never going to figure it out. So we're going to bring in the compassion. And we're going to say, this isn't true. It's just a belief system that I have, and it's trying to help me. So how can I choose again? The new belief system today is I'm going to set a manageable goal, and I'm going to hit that goal. And then I'm going to walk, and I'm going to drink a lot of water today. Just an example. Or maybe you need a day off. Maybe you need a day to really come back to the why. Why am I doing this? Maybe you need to schedule a coaching session or a therapy session. What do you need to do to feel better? Good, Joanne. I'm really enjoying giving it. So that's great. And of course, anyone feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll share that at the end too, but I just love expanding my network. So remembering we are all only comparing ideas, and social media has made this so much worse for us, but we see so much. So we all have ideas about how people are doing. And at the end of the day, we're only comparing our own ideas to other people's ideas. So if someone's idea is $1 million is successful, or $100,000 is, or 50K is a year, right? That's their idea. And we could take it on. And if we're not there yet, that means something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. It's just that we have an idea. And not that that idea is bad. If that idea motivates you and makes you excited and you find evidence for it, that is a great idea to have. But if it's igniting lower level emotions, we don't want it. We don't want it in this moment. I want to remind you that you are not your business. You are worthy outside of your business. Your productivity, your income, your strategy, or perceived stress, perceived success is not your worth. It's all ideas. And you get to choose all of that. But I think for entrepreneurs, it can be so easy to get so immersed and meshed up into all of this. So it's a reminder that none of this is you. You are you. You are not your family. You are not your house. You are not any of that. Like, you are you. Street racers causing regular people and pets to get PTSD. Are you talking about my background noise, or are you talking about the world as a whole? Because I agree with the world as a whole. I highly recommend too, for everyone, limit your news intake. That's a very personal suggestion, but I stopped watching the news and I feel great. So Jay says I only watch for the weather. Yeah, and that's controversial with some people, but I'm just like, I cannot. So An exercise to get you back on track. Write out at least 5 things you know you're good at. And it doesn't have to be good at. This is very you and your background noise. Is that what that means? Your and our background noise. So it doesn't need to be just what you're good at, because that's coming back to productivity. Come back to things that you like and appreciate about yourself and start focusing on those things. Start to really focus on, where do I provide value in my own life? What would other people say about me if they were talking about me to someone? If you guys experience this presentation, what would you say about me that I can't maybe see about myself, and vice versa? Those are the things we need to concentrate on, instead of all of the other reasons we can find that we're not going to be successful. We didn't get the MBA, or we didn't start soon enough. The mind can come up with a million reasons. So another trick I like to have, and I'm paying attention to the time here, is just categorizing our stressors. So feel free, you're going to get the PDF, so I'll just blast through this, but important and controllable. I have a client tomorrow and I need to give them a presentation. Okay, well, that's important and controllable, right? Important and uncontrollable, that unfortunately would be COVID-19. We can only control so much. Unimportant and controllable are the procrastination tactics that many of us can turn to. Oh, I think I'm going to clean the house or do the laundry, or, oh, I'm just giving my own examples, but, oh, I need to call my mom. We need to call our mom, but maybe not right when we are trying to get something important done. And then unimportant and uncontrollable, I always think about gossip and focusing on the negative and judgment. We've all been in work environments that fixate on that. So to me, that's unimportant and uncontrollable. So some final tips, thinking about a self-care action plan. Oh, honey, procrastination. So I'm learning a lot more about it. That's a whole other presentation. And I am also more than happy to have a one-on-one about procrastination, because there's so much that goes into it. It is, wow. The one thing that I am learning more than anything is avoidance is protection. So our brain is trying to protect us from something. Essentially, we're associating pain with not with procrastination. We're associating pain with doing the thing, and the procrastination is the pleasure. So maybe it's sitting in front of the TV, or I'm going to answer all these other emails, but not this one. So what we need to do is begin to rewire the pain and the pleasure, which is a process. But another thing that I really enjoy is the Pomodoro method, which is 25 minutes working. You can Google this, and 5-minute break. 25 minutes is so much more manageable than I have to work 8 hours. 25 minutes. If you don't want the 5-minute break, do another 25 minutes, get into a flow, and then take a 15-minute break or take a 20-minute break. But that has been incredibly good for me. So that's something I would suggest. But procrastination is so fascinating to me. It's because it's like, we know that we want to do the thing, but we're stopping ourselves. So yeah. All right. Choosing a new thought. Remember, I said 60 days. So if you need to get a calendar out, and it doesn't mean you have to think the thought all day, like set a 5-minute meditation aside and think the thought and generate good emotions. Remember, you are the main character in your story. So how would you begin to act if you actually realized that you were? What is the deeper meaning to what you do? So when you are unmotivated, what is the deeper why? Why do I care about what I'm doing? Why do I care about helping people? Or why do I care about my freedom? Why do I care about building a business? Keeping external values in check. This is something that we all struggle with, but we have to separate work from our lives and what we love to do. Physical health. of course, sleeping, eating, exercising, beginning to play with that, act as if. That is a huge hack that I love. It's when let's take the 10K or the 100K example a year. Okay. If you're looking to make 100K a year, and instead of saying, I'll be happy when that happens, act as if you're the person that is making that. And what would they do? Asking your future self, hey, what do we need to do on a daily basis? And remembering you're the main character and you get to create that. Okay, so here's some things to think about in creating your self-care action plan. You can watch this webinar again, but in thinking of everything, taking one or two things away that you can begin to implement on a regular basis. And remember, I said it can be 5 minutes or less. So you don't need to build it up. Oftentimes we self-sabotage beforehand saying this needs to be perfect. And no, it does not. It's simple, small shifts. Why do you care about making these changes? Do you need to have a coach, or do you need to talk to your significant other, or do you need to talk to a friend to help you accountable? How can you set better boundaries? Whole other presentation. Are you a people pleaser? Are you worried about what everyone else thinks about you? What does your intuition tell you is the most important thing to focus on? Make a plan. Very small plan is completely fine. And like I said, do you need accountability or support? What is one thing you can begin to do to really care for yourself? And if anyone feels like they want to share, if one thing, we can definitely do this in the Q&A as well, but feel free to share. Don't get stressed out. Much easier said than done. Yeah, feel free to share in the comments or the Q&A if you're like, ooh, I'm definitely going to do that. So that's the presentation for today. Here's my contact info. You can absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn, check out my website. I also don't know if I said this, but I work with companies and individuals. So if you need support one-on-one, fabulous. Or if you know of companies, I give presentations like this all the time because I believe everyone deserves to feel better. So happy to help in any way that I can. And with that, okay, resume meditating again, walking, and sprinkle in 5-minute breaks throughout the day. And that creates a huge transformation. I love that. So I'll open it back up to Ted, and thank you guys so much.
Well, Lindsay, thank you so much. There are so many points I could personally comment on that you brought up, but I'm going to hold back and look for our attendees to go ahead and chime in. I can open up the microphones if you'd like me to do that.
That's fine, and if people are more comfortable with the chat, that's fine too. But please feel free to share, anyone.
Okay, what I'm doing is giving the power to our attendees right now to open up their microphone and talk directly to you. So I'm just about there. Let me see. I got a couple more here. And all right, all attendees now have the capability of opening up their microphones and talking directly to you. Anybody want to chime in?
I thought this was pretty good. I wanted to know if you're related to Kurt.
I am related to Kurt. That's my dad.
Hence the sense of humor. I got it.
Yeah, that's my dad, and he's crazy. That's all I have to say, but he's great.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to say that the old law, as we think, as we are, always needs to be repeated.
Absolutely.
That's the foundation.
Mm-hmm. It comes back to that time and time again.
I appreciated the screen that you had that shows that we're more than just one part. I think you had it
I can go
more
back
than-
to that.
Yeah, it showed spirituality and
Yep.
some other things.
Well, and I think that was pretty mind blowing to me because I started with mindset, which we know is huge, right? We know that our thoughts are so powerful, but I started to think, okay, why is it so difficult for me to change my mindset? Like, why are affirmations not enough? And it's because it's not just that, even though that is maybe one of the most important
Right
ones.
there, yeah.
It's like if you're not drinking water, right? Or you're not focusing on anything else, it's not just mindset. You could make huge strides, but then other things are out of whack. So, well, once again, no need to overdo anything. Just be like, you know what? I'm out of touch with the outdoors. I haven't been outdoors in so long. I'm going to go stand in my backyard, stand in some grass. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be a mountain out of a molehill.
Do you have time to break down the difference between mental, emotional, and spiritual?
Sure, absolutely. Trevor says this was great. Your points really reassured me that I am. Yes. Keep going. Okay, so, and also your ego will try to convince you that you shouldn't keep going and it's not worth it. And it's so worth it. And the smallest changes, even going to bed 10 minutes early, so powerful. So this is honestly different for everyone. This is up to you to bring awareness to. But for me, mental is, and the cool part about this is it can hit multiple places. So if I say reading a book, that's mental. Listening to a podcast, that's mental. We can take the podcast with us when we're going for a walk and we're hitting physical, and a bottle of water, right? That also changes our energetic state. What if we're listening to a motivational podcast and it's activating the mental mind and it's also changing our energetic state? What if we are listening to a comedian that we like and it's making us laugh? That's hitting our emotional state. Does that make sense? So it's pretty intuitive. Like I can give you examples. Energy, go get a massage, go get some Reiki done, or talk to a good friend. But some of them just overlap, which that's where it comes down to our intuition. Oh, facts on ego. The ego, the ego is defined differently by different people. For me, the ego is a protector and it is my inner critic and it is trying to benefit me and help me, but it brings in fear. So when I am feeling fearful, that just means my ego has the floor and I have to come back to my intuition to say the ego will always be there and it will always be protecting me and always be chatting because that's a part of life. We're human beings. We're never going to be totally enlightened at a high, right? That's just, we can become enlightened, but it's not going to be perfect. How can I come back to my intuition? Is this my intuition or is this my fear? And that's, I think, really important work for entrepreneurs, because while there's a lot of good voices out there and everyone has their own opinion and facts and knowledge, we're often inundated with so many different things. And we take those on instead of coming back to what we know. Does that make sense? Like something can serve you or it can become a hindrance. Any other thoughts? I love this conversation.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
How do you stay focused on, I mean, I've read a few books like The Secret about the Law of Attraction, which is like you think, well, you attract what you think. But like my thing is, I've been practicing gratitude. I just can't stay committed to like staying. I don't want to like, I guess I would call it like the burnout comes from like a toxic cycle. So how do you stay committed on freeing yourself from it? That's my biggest thing. Like I lose focus and then it slowly creeps back in. And then it's hard for me to stay on that, let's get this and stay happy path.
Oh my gosh. And that's why I was saying it takes a while. And I think in our culture, we have that overnight mentality at the moment because we get packages in the mail instantly. And I want to say it can happen instantly. I think we'd have to have a deeper conversation about some of the things you're going through and your background. Like there's so much to go into, but that's what I would say to you. Set a small goal of 5 minutes a day. Abraham Hicks, if some of you might have heard of Abraham Hicks, I'm going to type it into the chat. She's a little woo, but that's okay. Everything she says is spot on. Everything is so motivational. Go on YouTube.
I didn't know that was a girl, and yeah, she's amazing.
She's freaking amazing. But she has this thing where she says, you might have heard of it, 17 seconds. So let's say you have a goal where you want your inbox with new clients. Okay. So for every day, meditate for 5 minutes, just do a calming meditation on YouTube for 5 minutes, and then put a timer on for 17 seconds to think about that happening. Maybe you can do it in the morning and at night, or maybe just do it in the morning. Set the standard to be, I'm going to do this for 30 days in a row, and I'm going to see if anything changes. I totally relate to you though, because I do the same thing. You go back to the old neural pathways, and it's kind of like working out. It's like a vigilance of, I have decided that I'm not doing this cycle anymore, and I'm going to be there for myself every day for 5 minutes and then go from there.
I think you gave me the answer, because I have been doing like certain routines every day. Like it started with staging, and then I was writing out the 10 things of gratitude, but I think I need to change it up every day. Like what's going to keep me focused on that, because I feel like I get exhausted from like the repetitive of kindness and like keeping me focused on the positive. Like I think I need to just like add a new routine in every other day.
Yeah. And the other thing is, let's say you want to taking a walk is really your jam for a few days. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm kind of bored. I think I'm going to change this up. You can do it when your intuition tells you to do it. But maybe the practice is every day I'm listening to my intuition and doing the thing that helps me today.
I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, happy to chat more. So feel free to connect. Anyone else have thoughts or any questions?
Well, we may have run out at this point.
Yeah, no problem. And I know sometimes this can get, personal. So
Yeah.
also respecting, if anyone has a question, you can email me pictureperfectmind@gmail.com, and I'm happy to chat more. And add me on LinkedIn. That's another way. Just add me on LinkedIn and you can shoot me a message. But thank you guys for this. This is great.
Yeah, one of the things that came to my mind, working with SCORE, of course, we speak with an awful lot of entrepreneurs, both people that have ideas of going into business or are moving along the road to establishing their business or are in business. One of the things that we tell people to certainly make themselves and help with any thoughts that they have that they're not accomplishing things is to collect testimonials. Put those testimonials on their website, to have testimonials there, to seek out testimonials, and to have people tell you what you're doing well. That's also good. Of course, you shouldn't listen to just what other people tell you, but it's always good to have testimonials. So second thing that did come up from my listening to your presentation,
Yeah.
Lindsay, was SCORE and other organizations in the area serve the function of the entrepreneurs who have this idea that they're alone, that they don't have any other resources, don't know where to go for resources. And fact of the matter is, that's one of the conundrums or circular thoughts that people can have, is that I'm all alone out there, and you're never really alone. As a business person, there are always people out there to help, and there's a lot of free help out there. So I wanted to make that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you do is great. I'm really looking forward to becoming more involved, because we know who we surround ourselves with is who we become. So if you're surrounding yourself with people who care and with people who can relate and people that are also going to motivate and push you, it's essential.
So if there are no other questions or comments at this point, I think we will close out our session and thank Lindsay. We're very grateful for your presentation tonight. And as indicated before, we will be sending out the recording of this presentation, as well as a PDF copy of the slides. Thank you, attendees, for being here tonight. And we look forward to your attending a future webinar that is presented through SCORE. So please visit our website again, which is buffaloniagara.score.org for future for future webinar information, and also for many other resources that are there. So have a good evening, and thanks again for being here.
Thank you.